Namaste and thank you very much.
And Namaste, Maya Durga.
Maya Durga, Namaskar.
All right. Maya is very nicely dressed for the show. Episode number 45, Utsuda. Utsuda, very interesting topic we have for all our viewers today. First, I want to remind everyone what we are doing here. So, for everyone who is just joining us, this is Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact, which is the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Initiative of World Hindu Council of America, or VHPA, and we come live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. And we come with a special music every week, and this time the special music is again by by Bharat and Padma Jayaraman, who contribute music every week, a brand new tune for us, custom created. Utsava, I want to also remind everyone that we are streaming in addition to people who are watching us on our social media channel, which is YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We also come live, recorded. Recorded on Tag TV. So last week was our first episode on Tag TV. And we got a lot of traction. Within a few hours, more than 1,000 people had watched it, and the number continues to grow. So Utsada, we have now not only are we on all the social media channels of our own, of VHPA and Hindu Pact, but also on Tag TV YouTube channel, and we are also on the Tag TV broadcast set-top box. So Utsada, with that, today's topic is Asian Americans near-whited, othered, and then attacked. And I will give you the background of that, but before that, I want to just mention that this is a call-in show, and please, we have an active chat group usually. So I forgot to turn on this music, so let me turn it off. And I just want to remind you that, and everyone, that this is a call-in show, so we welcome everyone to call in and participate in the conversation. With that, Utsuda, I turn it over to you to welcome all our viewers today.
Thank you, everybody. And yes, this is our 45th show. So we have been on air for a year now, and almost a year. And this has been fantastic run. And thanks to you all, we are now on Tag TV as well. And we look forward to a fantastic show. And this week's topic of Asian Americans is a topic that is not really discussed much, and off late has been getting some news time, not for good reasons. So we thought we would deconstruct some of the issues concerning Asian Americans and some of the narratives that are floating around. Few of them are true, few of them are false, and quite a few of them are politically motivated. So let me go back to Ajay Bhai, and we have Maya Durga here, who usually has the deepest expert opinions in our conversation. So I give you back, Ajay Bhai.
Right. So that this is an interesting news item. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to see if you or anyone else has any comments on this. So that this is a news item. This is a news a report that was done by Asian American and Pacific Islander group that does these kinds of studies and advocacy, actually, for it does advocacy for Asian Americans, which includes Indians, but it also includes the people from Far East Asia, but including the Chinese Americans, the Vietnamese, Koreans, Thailand, Philippines, all Asian American countries, including India. And this report, Utsoda, said that the anti-Asian hate crimes in the US increased by nearly 150% in 2020. And it's mostly in New York and Los Angeles, but it's not limited to that. If you read the news item, some of the latest attacks happened even in places in like Oakland. They happened in Houston. They happened in San Diego. They happened in other places as well. So this caught the attention of President Biden and a lot of other politicians. The city of New York, for example, put in some money to do city of Los Angeles, rather, put in some money to do research on this. So we are going to sort of dive deeper into this because there is an interesting conundrum, and we'll talk about that. That where do Asian Americans, including Indians, fit in this in this society? And I think that that is something that that is something that people have been trying to figure out for quite a while. So these are the some of the snippets of the NPR report, and it says that Stop AAPI, that's Asian American or Asian American Pacific Islander Hate, a coalition aimed at addressing the anti-Asian discrimination during COVID-19 pandemic, received more than 2,800, and I think this number is now up to 3,100 first-time reports of anti-Asian hate, including physical and verbal assaults between March 19 and December 31st, 2020. Nearly 44% of all the incidents reported to Stop AAPI hate have come from California. Asian Americans account for roughly 15% of the 40 million population. So you can see that the number of hate crimes against Asian Americans is widely disproportionate. So as I said, this caught the attention of federal government. It caught the attention of President Biden. It caught the attention of several people, right? So, but so this is what this is what the report further said, that the federal government must recognize this the role that federal government has played. I believe this is the statement. Just a second. Yeah, this is the one that you see in blue. So is the statement made by President Biden. And he said the federal government must recognize that it has played a role in furthering these xenophobic sentiments through the actions of political leaders. And so is obviously, so that he's referring to his predecessor, President Trump. And he's saying that, look, I mean, this is all the previous administration and we should be vigilant. And one of the series of racial equality focused executive orders that President Biden passed, I don't know what it means in real life, but that was basically, that was that was meant for Asian American. So our hate against Asian American, right? So I think that's all good. I really think that that's really, President Biden has done it. That was the need of the hour, and he has done it. And on the right-hand side, I displayed for those who wanted some more details about what Karthik Ramakrishnan, who is the founder and director on demographic data and policy research at API Data, what he directly blamed President Trump for the attacks on Asian American. Okay, all good. Okay, that's their opinion. But so this is a news item that kind of transcends a little politics, right? Because if you look at the report from San Francisco that came out, where they said that there is a spike in the attack against Asian American, especially in past 1 month. So that there was a change in administration. So I don't know if it serves the new administration or Asian American Pacific Island data or advocates like us to blame a political party or blame a particular political leader. There is an issue here. That issue needs to be addressed by everyone. Asian Americans cannot be brutally attacked while they're walking down the street or spat upon if they're, and we will come to all these incidents in a second. But the fact that there is the Asian Americans, including Indians, Hindus, are being singled out and are being attacked and harassed in the public sphere in America is not a good thing. And there's really no reason for this to be politicized. And it serves no one to politicize this. Because if you flip this around, and if President Trump was in his first month of presidency, and and there was a spike on Asian American or any ethnic group, like attack on them, then people would be saying, "Hey, look, there's a new president, and people have now, gotten some kind of, impunity, that they just, go out and attack whoever they want without feeling the pressure of prosecution. So they think that they're newly empowered to go and attack Asian Americans. So we want to transcend all that. We want to really get to the root of the problem. We want to discuss the root of the problem, and we have to figure out why this is happening. So before I turn it over to you and get your comments on just this part, before we go down the list of things that we've identified, I want to show you this one video, and I want to show this video to you, and I don't want to make it about race. I don't want to make it about any of that, but I just want to show you this video so that people would know what kind of what kind of attacks are happening on Asian Americans. Okay, so I'm gonna quickly share this one video that was posted on Twitter, and please let me know when you see it. So this is the video. It was from Twitter. Let me share the sound. Optimize for video clip. And there we go. So now, if you can see my browser screen, please let me know. And I'm going to play this video now.
I can see it.
Fuck the man. Fuck the nigga, and I got corona. Yeah, what's up? Fuck you too. Hey, hey. What you gonna do? What you gonna do? Don't touch my property. You about to get your ass beat the shit. Now you about to get beat the fuck up. Yeah, now you about to get beat the fuck up. Now you about to get beat the fuck up. What's up?
You don't touch my property. You don't buy it. You don't buy it.
I don't give a
So like, same thing continues, and this the women were arrested and all of that, obviously, because first of all they refused to wear the mask, and then after they refused to wear the mask, they started coughing. In this era of COVID, they actually started coughing on the cab driver who was of Indian origin, a Hindu. So and they damaged his car. It had to be things like that, right? So what do you make of this?
I think there is no doubt that there has been targeted violence against Asian Americans, and that is happening because to a large extent this violence has been encouraged over a period of time by many social factors here. And we are going to get into those social factors at some point of time in our conversation today. But the more important thing that needs to be understood is that going back to the statements by President Biden, the media needs to rise to the occasion and ask the question. We understand that President Biden thinks that the rise in violence is because of statements made by politicians. But if he's going to blame President Trump for statements that were made 1 year ago, why is the rise in violence happening now after President Biden has been in power for the last 2 months? So if it was the media that was actually neutral, they would be asking this question and they would be actually analyzing it. Imagine this, flip the situation. If it was a Democratic Party president, and I'm not trying to be political here, but I'm just trying to be objective here. If it was flipped and President Biden was the president before and President Trump was the president now, and the violence was happening right now, who do you think everybody would have blamed? President Trump, if he was the president right now. So I really think we need to revisit, and it's not as much as we need to revisit, but it's the American mainstream media that needs to revisit its own rationales and be more objective about it. We have to, if we are going to deal with any kind of discrimination, any kind of violence, any kind of social actions that cause harm to people, anybody, the first thing we have to do is to be honest about how we represent it and how we deal with it. And I think that is in this particular case, it's spinning. To use a cricketing term, the ball is already spinning before it has left the hand. So there's nothing much you can do with it. Ajay bhai, I don't hear your sound, so you will have to unmute.
Okay. So that we are going to analyze this based on multiple dimensions, this problem. And you know that we tend to be a little bit more analytic in this show, even though it is it's a casual banter and we just have a casual conversation. Whatever we present, we generally present with a good, with a good, evidence behind it, and we look at so that the dimensions along which we are going to analyze this issue is the model minority myth. That is certainly one dimension. The other is from the American dream perspective. The next one is the economic envy and the role the economic envy plays in this. And then we'll talk about the othering of Asian Americans, and we'll explain what othering means. And we will talk about the white adjacency, whatever that means, the whitening of Asian Americans. And finally, we are going to talk about this article that came in Wall Street Journal, which talks about the education, the New York City, and how New York City is now classifying Asians as pretty much as white, whereas the same Asians, when they go to school, they're being not treated quite the same. So multiple dimensions, lot to talk about, and then move on to the other views of the week as well. We have lots to cover, Utsada. So let's start with the first one, and I'll quickly lay the groundwork on the first one and get your view on this one. So Utsada, this is the report. This is about the model minority. For many, I think when people look at the economic data, right? And let me show you the economic data. You can see that from 1988 till today, Asian Americans, the median income of Asian Americans is higher than any other ethnic group. Right? So the Asian Americans are considered to be wealthier, richer than other groups, and this is something that is glaring. Okay, the other but instead of understanding why this has happened, the fact that Asian Americans grow up mostly in two-parent families, or they have higher education, and because their parents make extra sacrifices so that the children stay ahead in the schools, the parents expect a lot from the children who are in school. There are a lot of other socioeconomic factors that play into that, and it's not the privilege that was handed down to them. I mean, you can think of all the Vietnamese people who came as boat people, or you look at all the Indians who came with a degree, of course, but mostly with no money and just a degree and an education. And you can go down the list and you can see that Asian Americans, despite of all these difficulties, they have made quite a bit of progress. So that I think it's kind of interesting with this report from USA Today. This slide is from a USA Today report, and they are talking about that from the white perspective, the whites have used this model minority narrative to pit Asians against the people of other colors, and and Asians are attacked more by people who are non-white. I don't know if there is a direct correlation. This is based on a report that came from U.S. National Library of Medicine that says, the second part is from National Library of Medicine, which says the Asian Americans have a relatively higher chance than blacks or Latinos of experiencing hate crimes perpetrated by non-white. Now, the USA Today report, USA Today news item says that is because the writer said that they are model minority. I don't know if it White said that, or is it because the 7-Elevens and corner laundry stores are run by Asian Americans and the motels are run by Asian Americans, and that has given the perception. Um, but the fact remains, and USA Today got that part right. The fact remains that despite the report found that despite hate crimes against Asian Americans being on the rise, the studies rarely look at such incidents. So that there's a video that has been played a few million times that happened in 2020, where a Vietnamese American woman went to a Mexican restaurant and someone asked her to sit with that person, a man, and have lunch with her. And she said, I'm married, I'm not interested, right? And that person went on a diatribe and insulted this woman and really, made her life miserable right there in front of everyone. Nobody came to her rescue, which is not the end of it. She went to police and she complained, and police said in Los Angeles, police said they cannot do anything about it. Okay, so give me your comments on the model minority myth and the economic prosperity of Asian Americans before we move on to the other dimensions.
Well, all the things that you narrated, they are after the fact narrations. We have to look at the causes and the influences and the storylines that are causing this to happen. What has happened in American politics, and for that matter, politics in most countries of the world with a lot of diversity, is that identity politics has taken over as the main way to garner votes. Because any diverse country that has a lot of people from different parts of the world, America is really one of the most diverse countries in the world, and it continues to uphold its tradition of being an extremely diverse country. But with that comes the challenges of diversity, and part of that challenge is that there is going to be identity politics. And in the recent past, that has been encouraged because it helps political parties garner votes. And with that comes grouping of identities. So as we see more and more grouping of people based on economic agendas and economic narrations, people suddenly start questioning the color scheme based narrations, and they get into conflict with each other. Because it's easier to divide people on the color scheme based, which America is extremely good at. They literally sit with a color chart. When I say these are the socio-political agenda givers. They sit with a color chart and start defining people and their agendas. Now you put a layer of economics on top of it, and then suddenly it gets scrambled. With all of that, what is happening is that there is messages going out in the society, and this is not something new. This has happened in the past as well in America, that you cannot, you need to sub-discriminate within discriminate, and you need to create newer identities that identity politics promoters need to further subdivide on, so that they can garner the maximum vote. And at the end of the day, the whole messaging gets muddled. Whoever has the loudest voice in the media, at this point of time, we all know who does, gets to decide how to present the narrative. And truth is the biggest casualty of this. So in terms of looking at the model minority, whole model minority storyline, it basically says that, look, this is a socialist layering on top of the racial narrative building that America has. And therefore, anybody who, they may be minority, they may be, non-white in America, but hey, you know what? You are rich. So now you don't get anything that the other identity politics players are deserving and getting. So now you stand at the end of the queue there. Now what that leads to is that you get the wrong end of both the sticks here. So the white supremacists will have you at the wrong end of their stake just because of the fact that it has been hammered into their narrative building that you are not white. And the socialist, quote unquote, progressive left-leaning, I'm using the word progressive in under quotes because most of these people are actually not progressive. they have you at the wrong end of the stick just by the fact that you worked hard and you made good life for yourself in the economic aspects of things. So what you see now is an outcome of all these storylines that are being built again and again in the media, and they get enhanced in big time during elections. So every 2 years, every time there's an election for the House and the Congress, and every time there's a presidential election, these layers of messaging are further built upon and emotions stoked. Of course, votes are there for the taking for this, but it causes a social fissure that America right now will not feel it, because it's a country that is growing, and it's a country that has still got a lot of opportunities for people, for immigrants, for people who are working hard. But as America matures as a country and becomes a old world country, if I can put it that way, it will see the effects of these kinds of society dividing narrative building, and it will not be good for America. So it's all politicians at this point, I would say the Democrats more so, need to revisit their narrative building and their storylines, because it's affecting real people and their lives.
Yeah. So I think you put it so aptly, and I want to share this Wall Street Journal editorial, or rather op-ed piece with you, and this is a really interesting op-ed piece by Bill McGruin and William McGruin, and I'll let me share this with you and see what you have to say about that. So this is. And let me know when you can see and actually read this, because this may be, I want to make sure that the writing is big enough for everyone to read it, not just you. So this is an interesting article. Again,
I can see it clearly. Yeah.
Perfect. So this is an article. It just came out on February 22nd, and it talks about the woke model minority myth. For progressives, Asian American achievement is an embarrassment. And so I found this article really interesting. It's interesting because take a look at this. This is the equality report that came out from Lacey, Washington, and it classified the Asian American along with whites instead of students of color. Now, I was reading this last week a book written by H.V. Sheshadri, and he was a RSS, lifelong pracharak, one of the thought leaders in RSS. And when he came to America the first time, and he narrates this little incident that he goes to this, he was staying with a family, and they had a little girl, maybe 8, 9 years, 10 years old, and she was playing outside, and she came running home and with tears in her eyes. And she told, and her parents asked her, "Hey, why are you crying? What happened?" And she said, I was playing with my friends, and one of my friends said that you cannot play with us because you're not white. Okay. So this is one reality of Asian Americans, including Hindu Americans, Indian Americans, and this is the other reality where a school district classifies them as student of color. And in this particular case, they're classified as white because they're doing too well. Instead of, as I said a little earlier, like about 5 minutes ago, that instead of going into why they're doing well and how other communities can emulate something good, learn out of it, the fact that, Asian Americans the parents sacrifice a lot for their kids to get education. Asian American kids have not as many co-curricular, extracurricular activities. They sacrifice sports. They single-mindedly focus on studies. And it is no different than, a good artist, a good painter, because I don't take sports and other analogies, but a good artist. If you realize that your kid is gifted in music and then you put all the effort in music, or if your kid has good athletic ability, you put all effort into athletic ability. And if your kid has nothing going for him or her, they're not tall enough to play basketball, they're not strong enough to play football, they're not gifted enough to be a great musician or artist, then the parents say, hey, you know what? Sit and study. because at least you'll have a decent middle class living, right? That is what Asian Americans do to their kids. They expect a lot and they say excel because the world that they came from was not fair. Equal opportunities were not available to everyone. And so parents have learned the hard way that the only way out and economically prosper is really to excel in education. So they put everything in education, and then they come across this barrier. And Asian Americans doing well academically, student color. After a district said was overwhelming public reward, they finally said that the category choices had racist implication, and then they dropped the equity report. And this is what the term, if you're from India or China, because you're doing well, you're considered white adjacent, or as one of the high school kids we were talking to, so that you and I were both talking to this past week said, or they're called whitewashed, right?
So I wanted to say something
Yeah,
on this
please, go
report.
ahead.
So what is interesting about this is that you are basically undermining success in this storyline, and I think that is becoming a mainstream trend in America in recent times, because anybody who is, and the irony here is that many of these people, Asian Americans, are actually coming from societies that not more than 3 generations ago were colonized. So it's not like they're coming from uber privilege of any sort. In fact, quite the opposite. So, but this is what happens in identity politics, that it's all about siloing people into small groups so that you can deal with each of them separately and use one against the other as a way of garnering votes. And I think this is devolving America is devolving into this vote bank politics society. And the saddest part here is that there is a huge intellectual core group out there, that many times controls universities, has good voice in Hollywood, has a very powerful voice in the media, think tanks. They are very much in this narrative because it doesn't affect them directly yet. So they are perpetuating this as much as they can. And, there is another interesting point I wanted to mention, which would, make this report very, very relevant. In California last year, I think it was University of Berkeley, which actually came out with a report which said that immigrants from Sudan or Ethiopia, one of the two countries, are actually white based on their privilege, status, or they did some study. So, it's the whole definition of what race means is also flipping around here. And the people, there will be a time when somebody who is white will declare themselves black and get away with it. And, that's how warped this whole storyline is becoming. And that's how it's dangerous. But people in America don't seem to understand this. And I don't know what the implications of that will be.
And also, the sad part is that we have seen this movie before.
Yes.
When the society has been so finely, divided, it is impossible for people of that country to come together and be cohesive and and really prosper, everyone prospering together. If you look at the reservations in India, and look, I would be the first to say, because I've seen it firsthand, that no society, including Indian society, is made of equals. There's discrimination in India of all kinds. There are discrimination based on you name it criteria, right, in India. And so Indian government constitutionally had a certain amount of quota that they set aside in education, in jobs, and it was justified in 1947. And then more and more groups started demanding this quota, and more politicians started, dividing up this quota within quota to give quota to other people. And the sad part, Utsoda, is the people who ended up benefiting out of it are the people who in India people call creamy layer. The people who are already doing well because they had enough political power and they ended up, consuming most of these quotas. So I think, and at the end of the day, what India could have achieved in 20, 30 years of independence, it has taken India almost 70 years and we are still not there in India. And it's going to, and only because of the present government, which is trying to rise above this narrow-mindedness of all kinds of societal division and trying to unite India based on its ancient principles, that country is finally coming together. But as it may be, let's continue on this Wall Street Journal report, Utsara. And this of course, Mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, came across this, engineered this report called "The Secret Shame," and you can see the name of the report here, "The Secret Shame," and saying that in that report it said that the Black and Latino children have been falling behind. And look, again, numbers are numbers, right? So Black and Latino, if the studies find that the Black and Latino students are falling behind, then there is a real need to understand why. Is it because of the family structure? Is it because early education is not there, like pre-K education, kindergarten education, K4 education? Where are the are there school lunch programs that are sufficient to feed all the kids who are coming to New York City schools? There's so many dimensions to that. So instead of looking at that, taking a classic communist approach that you bring down everyone to the lowest common denominator does not work for the society. We tried that. The humanity tried that in Soviet Union. It did not work. And look, what he's saying is like, abolish the entrance exam for the city's gifted and talented program, because even though Asian Americans are 17%, 42% of Asian Americans are qualifying through these exams.
I wanted to say something, stop you for a moment there and say something about the Soviet model, which you mentioned.
Yeah.
Look, even the Soviet Marxists, Soviet communists, they started off by bringing everybody down to the lowest common denominator, as you noted, which these people love to do, the progressives love to do in America. Irony here is that even the Soviet Union realized after 10, 15 years that they need special schools and special talents set up for people who they think are more gifted. So I don't know how many people here are from the time when they remember stories from East Germany and from the Warsaw Pact countries. But it would be very interesting for young people in America who are into progressive politics, and for good reasons. I mean, there are many good things to talk about in that as well. They need to go back and revisit what the socialists in Russia and East Germany and all these places did. They will be surprised that in East Germany, kids at the age of 4 were picked out and separated so that people who the state felt were smarter were given a different quality of education with different skill sets than the people who the state thought was not as smart and belonged to. So this kind of segregation in education, even the Soviet Union had done it, because they at some point realized that bringing everybody down to the lowest common denominator actually doesn't work, and their society is going to collapse, which it eventually did. But it is important for our friends who are in all spectrums of the socio-political ideological spectrum in America. They need to study other parts of the world where these things have not worked, and maybe even look at things that worked. And one of the things about America that attracts people to America is the free society and the competition that is there in this country. If we stop bringing a free competitive environment, then America will eventually not be America anymore. And I think some people are working very, very hard to do that. And you will not be surprised if you see other parts of the world gaining much more economic strength and intellectual capabilities over the next couple of decades.
And this is not just New York. I mean, like you can see here, I've highlighted that San Francisco's renowned Lowell High School also abolished merit-based admission because Asian Americans were qualifying at a much higher rate. And then if you go down in this article, it makes some good points, right? It says that it gives out a wrong message that the strong work ethics in America, that in America, as long as in America, if you work hard, you can achieve things. And that is the promise of America that brought a lot of the Asians to America, including Indians and Hindus, and it also brought a lot of Chinese and Vietnamese and Koreans and all of them to America because
It brought everybody. Let me tell you, it brought people from Africa to America. It brought people from South America to America. It brought everybody to America with that promise. That's why you will see that even within people of color communities, as I'm calling it based on the popular narrative here, there is a division now. There is a division where immigrants within the people of color community are also feeling hurt by this narrative. I mean, somebody who has come to America from South America also has come for the same dreams that there will be success based on merit and hard work. Somebody coming from Africa. So it's not just Asian Americans who have these kinds of ethical expectations. It is people from all parts of the world. I think where we are going wrong is somewhere within America. And somewhere after people have come here and have lived here for generations, and they are falling into political storytelling. And that's what we have to look after. It's not just, it's not coming from immigrant populations and their value system. It's coming from a value system that is getting promoted within America, especially in the campuses and universities and so-called progressive state places.
Yeah, and then it's really I highlighted a couple of things that in the past it says the anti-Asian bigotry took the form of direct assaults, but now it is it's a lot more, right? And it's saying that but today many Asian Americans are learning that progressive form of discrimination may be the most insidious of all. And if you go down, it says that really, what should Asian Americans tell their kids? Should they tell them that, hey, accept this, suck it up and live? Or do they tell them that, hey, look, bring about the change? I'll tell you, so that I tell my son that obviously we want equality. Obviously we want everyone to be treated fairly, and we don't want to certainly don't want to deprive anyone of fair chances. But I also tell him that, look, you are an Asian American, and your fate in America is that you have to work harder than any other ethnicity, and you have to work harder because the opportunities that you have to fight harder to avail of the opportunities that you have. Your life is not going to be easy. And so I tell my son that if other people are giving 100%, because you're Asian American, unless and until the things change, work 125% hard. Don't put in 100%, because as a nation, you have to. So that the reason I say that is because I also want to show you this one thing here, and that is the other part of it, right? So that before while we explain this slide, tell everyone what is othered, because that is a term that a lot of people in our audience may not know about. What is othered, or what is othering?
So othering is, again, it's an outcome of identity-based storytelling. It is basically when you create a social subgroup that is ideologically in conflict for whatever number of reasons. You can list the reasons, for history, for color, skin color, or whatever, with somebody else. So therefore, they are not part of the group that is doing it. And othering it's a historical. It starts with revealed belief systems, I must say. There is the believer and the non-believer. So it starts from there, goes back 3,000 years, 2,000 years. And othering has been a historical phenomena. It's how humanity unites and divides at the same time. I will probably coin a new term. It is micro-othering now that is happening in America. Previously it was the believer and the non-believer othering. That was the global phenomena, at least in big parts of the world. Social belief system, religious schools of thoughts had that. Now it's a different kind of othering. I would say it's micro-othering, where the curliness of your hair could be the cause for othering. The type of work you do, the othering is happening at many different levels. Again, an outcome of of politics that is driven by identity. That is very popular in America now.
So that, I saw this and I said, hey, look, Harvard is taking a very, pro Asian stand here. And the Harvard Crimson is writing an article about the othering and the exclusion of Asian American. And then in the same year, so that there was a federal lawsuit against Harvard for its discrimination in admission against Asian Americans, including Chinese, Indians, Koreans, Vietnamese, Filipinos, etc. And this is what Harvard was doing. And so the Whitening of Asian American, the Atlantic had quoted this Harvard's own internal research division and found that if the admission in Harvard was fair, 43% of admitted class would have been Asian American. Okay, but then Harvard, a supposedly a fair and just institution that is so concerned about, so they're so concerned about the othering and exclusion of Asian Americans, and it added other factors such as legacy students, athletics, extracurricular activities that generally exclude Asian Americans. Okay, if you apply those criteria, the Asian American admissions at Harvard would go down to 26%. Okay, not good enough for Harvard. Not good enough for Harvard. So note that. Not good enough for Harvard. So what do? They then go and apply a test of like what is the personality type and what is the demographic. So they like how does this person present himself or herself? Very subjective, right? And then they apply the demographic factors, and then they apply that so that the number of Asian Americans fall to 18%. Okay, from 44%, if it was a just and fair system, Asian Americans are down to 18%. And yet, the New York Department of Education sponsored groups say that Asians benefit from white privilege. Okay, so now my question for you, Utsoda, is what is an Asian American kid to do? You go out to a playground and what's going on. Someone who's using the handle, what's going on, is saying the same thing, that in Illinois there's a parking subdivision, then whites and Asians don't play together for whatever reason, for discrimination reasons, so whatever it is, right? So, and I told you, I narrated the story of this little girl. So on one hand, the Asian Americans are not really included in one categorization of race, and they're not included in the other categories on the race. They're being spat upon or coughed upon by both sides. They're being pushed off the railway platform. They're being killed in a bar. So basically, Asian Americans, including Indians, including Hindus, are in this position where they're getting beat up from all sides. What are they to do? And you're like, we are barely 3-4% of the population.
Correct. So, there is little that can be done in this environment except throw light on truth. Because I think, what I have observed historically is that social realities eventually have a way of figuring themselves out and resolving themselves, because social realities are based on competitive social movements, and in that it is at some point truth comes out. So this kind of false othering and false identity politics will continue on for some time before it reveals itself and it starts unraveling. And that is going to it's unfortunate that probably a generation of American young young men and women will be suffering because of it, most of them Asian Americans. But eventually society will figure itself out, and I'm a big believer in that. The more important aspect here is for people to actually focus on truth, focus on and focus on bringing positive equality to the society. So I mean, that fact needs to be underlined many times over. The easiest way to other anybody is to dismiss their truth. And I think that's the larger ideological conversation that we have to offer to the society as Hindu Americans, because othering is the easiest thing to do, and it is also the easiest way to divide people and bring your own quote unquote tribe together, however you define it on the color chart basis or economic basis, but it will not last. Eventually it will break up and everybody will suffer. So I cannot underline the fact more than the fact that we need to have truth be brought to light, and I think Hindu Americans have a good role in that.
That so that with that we conclude this particular segment of the show, and I think we you know I think we should be hopeful that in America, these things have, in general, a way of working itself out through dialogue, through court system, through legislation, and through education. And I remain eternally hopeful that we in America will work it out. So with that, Utsada, I want to close this particular segment, and I want to move on to some other news. So the next item is, I let you speak to this because this is your favorite item, and I'm hoping that Maya Durga will let you speak on this because this is your item. So Maya, let your dad speak. So tell us about this conference.
So, well, this is a conference of women of Dharma, which is women from Hindu and other dharmic communities, both Sikh and Jaina communities, largely part of the Sanatan Dharma, Hindu identity. So this conference is being organized by a Hindu organization, and it is amazing because I highlighted the part where Sonal Shah, a leading member of the American Hindu community, who used to be part of World Hindu Council of America not too long ago. She's a keynote speaker, but guess who else is speaking here? And that's why this item made it to the news. It's going to be Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal on equity for women of Dharma. So, Pramila Jayapal was in the news over the last year for her actions and statements and resolutions that she sponsored that literally was aimed at bringing misery to big chunks of the Hindu populations in other parts of the world and in America to some extent. But here we have her speaking at the inaugural message of the Equity for Women for Dharma by this organization. So I am looking at it positively. I don't know how everybody else is looking at it, but maybe she has seen some enlightenment, or maybe she's just using it as a stepping stone to make herself look good again. Either way, I think it's any form of engagement, in my opinion, is good engagement, and I hope it brings out better out of her, and for the community, the Hindu community.
Yeah, I think we remain eternally optimistic, and I think maybe Sonal will bring Pramila Jayapal around, and maybe Sonal will make Pramila Jayapal realize that her Hindu roots, her dharmic roots, she doesn't want to use the word Hindu. Okay, her dharmic roots are are something that she needs to come back to. and it will make for a better Pramila Jaipal in future. We remain as always, Sada, we remain optimistic, and we are cheering this time for the first time on the show. Let's cheer Pramila Jaipal.
Sonal certainly has the capability to do that. We hope she does.
Welcome home, Ghar Vapsi for Pramila Jaipal. Ghar Vapsi is a big concept right now.
Hopeful Ghar Vapsi, I would qualify it.
Sudha, let's be optimistic. Come on. And we should offer Pramila, while we are at it, if you have a Shuddhikaran ceremony for Pramila Jaipal, for a communist who is coming back home, I mean, we should offer that for free to her too.
Meditation class, meditation session.
Let's offer her a free meditation class, and a class on yoga, meditation, and welcome her back. I'm very proud of her attempts and efforts in coming back to the Hindu fold. Hopefully she'll see our way on issues ranging from Kashmir to CAA and all the other things. I mean, like this, she's powerful. She has a big voice in Congress. Like, absolutely. Well, so now with that, we come to the next next big thing on our show, and let's have a drum roll for that. And a drum roll. Where is it? Here we go. Good news of the week. So I brought out something that make you happy because you grew up in Madhya Pradesh, right? Look, names are changing in Madhya Pradesh. You grew up in Bhopal?
Yes, I did.
No, Bhopal is now Bhojpal, and Idgah Hills and Obadullah Ganj and Begum Ganj, and all of them are now changing names. Look at this. Even Minto Hall is no longer Minto Hall.
I don't. You haven't shared the screen, so I don't see it here.
I'm sorry. I got so excited about this that I found some good news that would make you happy, and I forgot to share the screen. So there we go, Sudha.
So someday we should have this conversation on the history of Bhopal. Or Bhojpal, as I should call it now.
Yes, please.
Because Bhojpal, it's a fascinating place and one of the most understated regions of the Indian subcontinent when it comes to its history. And, I did not appreciate it as a kid growing up, but Bhojpal was one of the largest artificially man-made created water bodies. Because, for those of us who are from the Indian subcontinent, if you know that region, it is an arid region. It's not very, doesn't get much rain, but more than close to almost 1800 years ago, there was a man-made artificial lake that was created to provide water supply, which is one of the largest irrigation projects in the world for those days. Even the Roman Empire and the construction work, aqueducts that were built by the Romans would pale in comparison to the scale of these projects that were done 1800 years ago. But unfortunately, like so many things in our part of the world, the history of Bhojpal has been forgotten, and it's named after the great king, a very famous Hindu king named Raja Bhoj, a connoisseur of art and architecture and beautiful work that is still in ruins in many outskirts of Bhojpal. So as a student of architecture, I studied this a little bit, but as also somebody who is children of colonized people, I didn't give enough appreciation to it. So hopefully, once I'm economically rich enough to go back to my part of the world where I come from, I will probably write a book about it. As an architect, I probably will be qualified to do it, and I really hope something good comes out of this.
So our compliments to Shivraj Chauhan. So there is the second good news of the week, and that is, if you recall, there was a legislation in New York on swastika, and a lot of Hindu organizations got together. Kona played a very significant role in that. We were part of some of the meetings with legislation as Hindu Pact and AHAD as well, but Kona really took a lead, and that legislation has now been, basically put to rest. It's not going to pass. And I think it is a strength. There were maybe over a dozen Hindu organizations were together on this, and I participated in a couple of meetings with the state senators. So I want to give a shout out to Nikunj Trivedi, who did a great job on this, and other people who were involved. Dr. Raj Bayani was one of the people involved as well. And I think, it shows that when Hindus come together, a lot can be achieved. And I think that is a compliment to the Hindu community. Unless you have any comment on this, I'd like to move on to the Hindu Seva Charity Act of the Week. So can I move on to that?
Yes, absolutely, please.
So let me start by, as we go there, let me share another screen. And this time I want to have a theme music for Hindu Seva Charity Act of the Week. It's a 15-second or so clip. And I just want to, and I this time it is this clip, next time it may be a different clip. And eventually we'll settle on a theme for all our segments. So this is the theme this week for Hindu Seva Act of the Week before you introduce the subject. So the Lokahitam Mama Karaniyam. We have good thoughts in our mind, we do good actions, and we help other people. Tell us about the Hindu Seva Act of the Week.
So I think this week and next week will be very important for in some ways, because we are going to focus starting this week onwards on a very important event in human history, especially for American Hindus, because not more than 50 years ago, 2.8 million Hindus were killed in a genocide in what was East Pakistan and now currently Bangladesh. And so Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that has a special consultative status at the United Nations Civil Societies Organization Group, ECOSOC, which is very rare, actually. I don't know of any Hindu organization that has it. So it's very important to support Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities. It is an organization that was started in 2001, and they are hosting an event on March 20th at and you can register. You can see the link below. It's tinyurl.com/UN event HRCBM. And as you can see on the screen, and you will be able to hear their presentation focused on the genocide, on the status of women actually in Bangladesh and the minority women and the suffering they face. But HRCBM is also organizing an event on 25th of March, and they are going to do a car rally that will culminate in front of the Pakistan embassy, protesting against the genocide and the non-action of Pakistan as well as the world community on the military leadership. Those days they were military young officers who perpetrated a genocide, and I think next week we will talk about it most likely. But it is important that we support organizations like HRCBM, because they have been doing the work on educating people and bringing out action on the sufferings of the Hindu community, especially in Bangladesh in this case. And I cannot underline the fact that they need your support. They represent us all and want to be the people. They should be the people who need the support.
So very, very, very well put. I hope that everyone goes out and supports Human Rights Congress for Bangladesh Minorities. I think that is, while you're at it, so why don't you plug next week's program as well, because it's in line with it's in line with what you just mentioned. So we are going to do a special in the lounge next week. Tell us about it.
So next week we would be doing a special coverage on the 50th anniversary of I won't use the word anniversary, but commemoration of the genocide that was done in Bangladesh by those days East Pakistan in 1971. It started on March 25th in a military operation that the Pakistani army started called Operation Searchlight, in which Pakistani army as well as Islamists from Jamaat-e-Islami, Muslim Brotherhood linked organization, they went around Bangladesh and killed more than 2.8 million Hindus and 3 million Bengalis, many of whom were Muslims as well, who opposed the Islamists. And this is important because it's the 50th year and we need to bring attention to it globally. There is quite a bit of awareness about the Armenian genocide, which happened 100 years ago in the Armenian community, as well as around the world. Holocaust, of course, one of the most tragic events of the last 100 years. Young Jewish Americans, Jewish people around the world understand and know about it. But Hindus don't really know much about the genocide that they suffered, 2.8 million people in just 50 years ago. And, I would like to hear from people who are listening to this, how many of their kids or how many of they themselves have spoken about this, and how much does the 2.8 million Hindu lives lost in 1971 live in the consciousness of average Hindus around the world? Ask your kid if they know about it, if you do already. So these are things that we will cover next week in our show. It's going to be a special on the genocide in 1971.
Thank you, Utsada. And Utsada, with that, we come to the final segment of the week, and that is the Hindu phobe of the week.
Okay. Go ahead, Ajay Bhai. This time you take care of it.
No, Utsada, this is something that I would like you to go over, because Alabama House, good news, right? They ended 18-year-old ban on yoga in public schools. So why is that Hindu phobe of the week?
Because the fact that it was a ban to begin with, it highlights the absolute impact of radicalized Christian identity politics in America. And but the reason it's this week's Hindu phobe of the week is because although this news is made to look like it's a positive news because there is an end of ban on yoga, the fact that Alabama House actually had to ban the word namaste shows the level of bigotry. For most Hindus who listen to us, I hope they understand the meaning of the word namaste. If you have to ban a greeting that comes from the bottom of your heart, literally, from your soul to another soul, with no mention of the word Hindu, no mention of the word Bhagavad Gita or Vedas or anything in it. It's just a word. You have to ban the word namaste because your religion is threatened by it. I think they need to question their own religion, whatever that is, who are doing this. And I think that's why it is the Hindu phobe of the week, I think.
So with that, we come to the end of our episode number 45. I want to tell everyone that that you've been watching and listening to Hindu Lounge. Hindu Lounge is brought to you by Hindu Pact. Hindu Pact is the Hindu Policy Research and Advocacy Initiative or collective of World Hindu Council of America, VHPA. Utsada, our co-host, is the executive director of Hindu Pact. And with him, I am Ajay Shah. I am the president of World Hindu Council of America. We come to you live every Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern and we talk about contemporary American Hindu issues. And with that, Utsada, keep the streaming on. We will play the entire special music that was created just for episode number 45 by Padma and Bharat Jayaraman. An awesome music piece, and they are, they do this, amazing work creating this music for us. So, with that, Usada, I wish you and all our viewers the best of the coming week, and I will see you again next week. And
Namaste,
please,
everybody. Namaste. I want to say namaste to all our friends in Alabama, and I hope they say namaste as well.
and please tell Maya Durga, who before even she learns to speak, she has learned how to do namaste. So with that, Utsada, I want to let's come to an end for this show, and we will see everyone again next week. And here we go with the extra music once again by Bharat and Padma Jayaraman.